I have been living a double life for 5 years. During the day, I am a normal office worker. But in the evening, I have a different personality. None of my loved ones even guess. I am so confused that I don't understand who I really am. And I am afraid that everything will be revealed at the worst possible moment. I've been living a double life for over 5 years, and the terrifying part is that no one, not even my closest friends, has any idea. By day, I'm the model office worker. Neat, punctual, friendly, the kind of person your boss brags about at meetings. I go to work, smile at coworkers, come home, cook dinner, maybe watch a show, and go to bed on time. That's the life people see, the life everyone thinks I live. But the truth is completely different. My nights are my secret world. It all started in college, as a joke really, pretending to be someone else online. I never imagined it would turn into what it became. I created a persona that was confident, fearless, witty in ways I could never be in real life. At first, it was harmless fun, chatting with strangers, posting under a fake name, a little escape from my boring routine. But soon, it became a ritual. Every night, I'd log in, transform, and become someone entirely different. I could say the things I'd never dare say in person, flirt shamelessly with people I'd never meet, give advice I'd never dare give to anyone I knew. The thrill was addictive, and it didn't stop there. I started planning small missions for myself, little social experiments to see how far I could push this alter ego without anyone noticing. Once, I even convinced a group of strangers that I was a famous author, complete with fake book excerpts I made up in the middle of the night, just to see if they would believe me. And they did. I laughed so hard I nearly cried, feeling guilty but exhilarated at the same time. There were nights I stayed up until dawn, typing and talking, while my real self slept in my bed just feet away, completely unaware. The most terrifying part is that I'm losing track of who I am. Sometimes, I catch myself using my fake persona's mannerisms in real life, joking in ways I never would have before, and I panic, thinking, have I become them? I'm living on a knife's edge, terrified that someone will find out, and every little interaction feels like a test of my ability to keep this secret. I don't think I'll ever stop, not completely. Part of me loves the freedom, the power of being someone who can say and do anything. But another part of me is terrified that one day, someone will see through the mask and everything will come crashing down. No one suspects a thing, not a single soul, and the thought that they might find out in the worst possible moment keeps me awake more than the excitement ever does. So here I am, confessing anonymously, wondering if anyone out there understands the thrill and the fear of living a life that is half real and half imagined. Have you ever hidden a part of yourself so completely that even your closest friends wouldn't recognize it? It started innocently enough. Just a few harmless posts, a few chats here and there under a fake name, but it quickly escalated into something I couldn't stop. Every night, after I'd shut down my laptop from work, I'd log into this alternate world where no one knew me, and suddenly I was someone entirely different. I began to craft my persona with almost obsessive care. A new name, a different backstory, a personality so unlike mine that I barely recognized the reflection I saw in it. I became bold, funny, flirtatious in ways that my real self never could be. I joined forums, chat rooms, and even social media groups where I could spread my other identity, and it was intoxicating. People liked me. They admired me. They trusted me. And for the first time in years, I felt seen, understood, and powerful, but only in this other life. There were moments that made me laugh uncontrollably, like the time I pretended to be a freelance photographer and convinced a group of strangers that I had traveled to obscure corners of the world just to take the perfect shot of abandoned buildings. I even photoshopped a few images I found online and sent them as my work. They were impressed. They asked for tips. They wanted advice. And I, lying in my room in my pajamas with leftover takeout on my desk, basked in it. I felt a strange mix of pride and guilt. Pride because I could fool people so convincingly, guilt because I knew I was deceiving them. But deception became addictive, and I started pushing the boundaries. I began interacting with people I knew from my real life but under this persona, testing the limits of how far I could go without anyone suspecting. The tension was thrilling. I remember one night, I struck up a conversation with a friend of a friend I'd met only once in person. Using my fake identity, I told them a story so elaborate and emotional that they began confiding in me things they'd never told anyone else. I listened, offered advice, made them laugh, and at some point, I caught myself smiling in a way I never did as myself. That was when the lines started blurring. I found myself responding to real-life situations with the confidence and humor of my fake persona, and people were noticing. They laughed at jokes I'd never have dared make before. They relied on me to be witty, charming, clever, and I was terrified because that wasn't really me. At the same time, I craved it. I craved the recognition, the attention, the feeling of being someone completely in control. I became paranoid too. Every ping of a notification made my heart race, because I never knew if it was someone from my daytime life stumbling onto my secret world. I would check usernames, scan profiles, and delete messages in panic, all while maintaining my daytime composure as if nothing were wrong. My routine became this delicate balance. Wake up, be the perfect office worker, go home, eat, sleep a little, and then dive into my other life until dawn. Weekends were even worse because I had more time to plan, more time to interact, and more time to invent stories that would make my persona feel real. I even started keeping small notes in a notebook hidden under my bed, little reminders of what my fake persona had said to whom, because I feared forgetting and accidentally revealing the truth. And the strangest part? I began to feel jealous of myself. I envied the confidence, the charisma, the fearlessness of this alter ego. Sometimes, I caught myself wishing I could just swap lives entirely, just be that person permanently, because they could face the world in ways I never could. But I couldn't. I had responsibilities, obligations, and a real-life identity that depended on me maintaining some semblance of normalcy. And yet, the more I indulged in this double life, the more I feared losing control. There were nights I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, heart pounding, wondering if someone had discovered my secret. Every message sent, every post made, every interaction felt like walking a tightrope over a pit of fire. One wrong move and my entire daytime life could unravel. And still, I couldn't stop. I rationalized it as harmless, just a way to escape the monotony, a form of entertainment. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. It was a craving, a need, a part of me I couldn't deny. I started imagining scenarios where someone would expose me. What would my friends say? Would my coworkers laugh, or would they feel betrayed? And sometimes, the fear was so overwhelming that I almost wanted it to happen, just to see if I could survive it. I even joked to myself that one day, my two worlds would collide in some epic disaster. And then, maybe, I'd finally have an answer to who I really was. But that day never came, and I kept going, lying, pretending, living as two people in parallel, each one unaware of the other, yet influencing the other in subtle, terrifying ways. I've become a master of compartmentalization, yet the act itself is exhausting, maddening, exhilarating, and I can't imagine stopping. Every night, I sit in front of my screen, typing, laughing, crying at stories and confessions that aren't mine, and I wonder if anyone else out there understands the thrill, the guilt, the shame, and the euphoria of living a life that isn't yours but feels more real than your own. Do you think you could keep such a secret forever? Or would it destroy you the way I sometimes fear it might destroy me? It wasn't long before things started spiraling in ways I never could have anticipated. One night, I received a private message from someone I had been talking to for months under my fake persona. They had become close to me, or rather, close to the version of me I had carefully crafted, and now they wanted to meet. Not online, not just a casual video call, but in person. My heart froze. Panic clawed at me like a wild animal. I couldn't possibly meet them. My real identity was nothing like the one they knew. But I also couldn't back out without arousing suspicion. So I started making excuses, delaying the meeting, spinning story after story about why I couldn't make it. Each lie weighed heavily on me, and yet, every message I typed as my alter ego felt thrilling. There was a power in deception, in holding the strings and watching the other person dance, oblivious to the truth. I was laughing and crying at the same time, feeling a sick mix of excitement and dread. Then came the night I made my biggest mistake. I had grown careless, thinking I was clever enough to maintain this double life indefinitely. I had one conversation too many, one joke too far, one story that accidentally revealed a detail only my daytime self would know. My stomach twisted in knots as I realized the person I had befriended online was suspicious. They started asking questions, probing deeper, and for the first time, I felt the crushing weight of my deception closing in on me. I wanted to run, to disappear, to log off forever and pretend none of it had happened. But I couldn't. I had invested too much of myself, too much of my time, too much of my identity into this other life to just abandon it. So I played along, hoping my quick thinking and a flurry of excuses would be enough to buy me more time. It worked for a little while, but the anxiety never left. I lay awake at night, my phone buzzing with messages, my mind racing through every possible scenario of exposure. I imagined my friends discovering my secret, my coworkers laughing behind my back, my family feeling betrayed. And in the middle of all that fear, there was a strange, dark pride. I had created something so convincing, so compelling, that it could almost live without me. I had crafted an identity that people cared about, a personality that thrived in ways my real self never had. Yet, the more I tried to compartmentalize, the more blurred the lines became. I started forgetting which conversations I had as myself and which ones I had as the other persona. I would answer a work email with a joke my fake self would say or mimic the tone of messages I had sent online without thinking, and people would laugh or respond positively, never knowing they were witnessing fragments of someone else. Sometimes, I even caught myself dreaming as that other person, waking up disoriented and panicked, unsure if the memories were real or fabricated. My mental exhaustion grew, but so did the thrill. I was addicted to the rush, the delicate dance of deception, the constant fear of being discovered. Then came the incident that made me question everything. One evening, while casually scrolling through social media as my fake self, I noticed a photo posted by a friend of a friend. They were at a party I had also been invited to in real life. My heart skipped a beat. I hadn't planned for this collision of worlds. I realized that if I attended, someone might recognize me, someone might connect the dots between the real me and my fake persona. But if I didn't attend, it would raise suspicion in the online world. I felt trapped in a cage of my own making, suffocating under the weight of my choices. I tried rationalizing, telling myself it was fine, that I could navigate the situation with finesse. But deep down, I knew it was a ticking time bomb. I stayed up all night, analyzing the photo, rewriting stories in my head, preparing for any possible interaction. The anxiety was suffocating, yet I couldn't bring myself to abandon either side of my life. I became paranoid, constantly checking notifications, profiles, messages, trying to anticipate every possible outcome. Every small detail mattered. The way I smiled in a photo, the angle of my camera, even the timing of my posts. It felt like living in a constant state of war, with myself as both the general and the soldier, battling for control. And the irony was that my daytime life continued as normal. I smiled at coworkers, laughed at office jokes, cooked dinner, and pretended nothing was wrong, while at night, I was consumed by fear, guilt, exhilaration, and shame. I began noticing strange things about myself. I would catch glimpses of my fake persona in my reflection, the way I held myself, the expressions I used. It was disorienting and terrifying. I couldn't distinguish where I ended and where my alter ego began. I started questioning everything. My memories, my feelings, my choices. Was I living my real life, or was I simply performing the same role I had created online? The obsession consumed me. I would write long messages, delete them, rewrite them, agonize over every word, every nuance. I found myself laughing at situations that should have made me cry, crying at moments that should have made me laugh. I became a master manipulator of my own reality, and yet I felt powerless, like a puppet dancing to strings I didn't fully control. And then, in a moment of clarity amidst the chaos, I realized something terrifying. I had started to enjoy the fear. The thrill of deception had become as essential as breathing. I didn't just want to live a double life. I needed it. It was the only place where I felt fully alive, fully expressive, fully seen. And that realization was as horrifying as it was liberating. I knew the longer I continued, the higher the stakes, the more inevitable the collapse would be. But stopping, that was unthinkable. I was too deep, too invested, too addicted to the power, the thrill, and the chaos. My secret life had become more real than my real life, and I was powerless to stop it. And now, every time I log on, every time I type a single word as my fake self, I wonder, how long can I keep this up before the truth comes crashing down? Will I be able to survive when someone inevitably sees through the mask, or am I building a trap for myself I'll never escape? And the terrifying answer is, I don't know. Have you ever lived a life where the person you are online feels more real than the person everyone sees in the real world? Everything I had built, every carefully maintained secret, came to a head one night I will never forget. It started as an ordinary evening, just me, my laptop, a cup of cold coffee, and the familiar thrill of slipping into my other life. But that night, the universe seemed determined to punish me for years of deception. A notification popped up. A friend from my daytime life, someone I trusted, had joined the same chat room under an anonymous username. I froze. My heart raced. I stared at the screen for what felt like hours, debating whether to log off, to pretend nothing had happened, or to risk interacting. Curiosity got the better of me, and I clicked. Their messages were casual, seemingly innocent, but there was an undercurrent of familiarity in their tone that made my stomach twist into knots. Every word they typed felt like a probe, a test, a challenge to my carefully constructed reality. I tried to keep my cool, crafting responses that would keep them convinced this was someone else, a stranger, but my hands shook, my vision blurred, and I couldn't breathe. I realized, in that horrifying moment, that years of practice in deception had not prepared me for this. This was someone who knew my world, someone who could recognize the cracks, someone who could unravel everything in an instant. I typed and deleted messages, over and over, each one a desperate attempt to maintain the illusion, but nothing felt safe. Then came the message that made my blood run cold. It's weird, I feel like I know you, maybe too well. Are you who I think you are? My fingers hovered above the keyboard. Panic consumed me. My heart pounded like a drum in my chest, and for a split second, I imagined throwing my laptop across the room and disappearing forever. But that would raise suspicion. I needed a plan. So I crafted an elaborate lie, a story so convincing it almost fooled even me. I blamed coincidence, manipulation, chance, everything except the truth. They responded cautiously, still probing, still curious, and I realized with a sick thrill that I had them dangling on the edge of belief, my control absolute, yet terrifyingly fragile. 4 hours, the conversation twisted and turned, a dangerous dance on the razor's edge of discovery. My mind raced, my palms were slick with sweat, and every instinct screamed at me that one wrong word could shatter everything. I couldn't stop thinking about what would happen if they discovered me, if my daytime life collided with my nighttime persona in a single, catastrophic moment. I imagined the shock on their faces, the betrayal in their eyes, the laughter, the judgment, the gossip that would ripple through my carefully curated social circles. And yet, amidst the terror, there was an intoxicating thrill, a twisted exhilaration, a rush I had been chasing for years. I realized then that this was why I had continued living a double life for so long. Not just the freedom, not just the attention, but the adrenaline, the constant high-stakes tension of being two people at once. The night stretched on, each message a gamble, each response a test of my wit, my nerve, my ability to survive. I laughed nervously, cried silently, and typed with trembling fingers as I navigated the labyrinth of my lies. Then, in the dead of night, the unthinkable happened. They sent a photo, a selfie, casual, innocent, with a background I recognized instantly. My apartment building, my street, my city. My throat went dry. My heart skipped a beat. This was no longer a test. This was reality encroaching on my fantasy, threatening to rip the mask from my face. I could feel every fiber of my being tightening with fear, my brain scrambling to fabricate an excuse that would hold up under scrutiny. I typed and deleted, words flowing like a river in flood, none of them feeling adequate, none of them safe. I realized, in that horrifying moment, that the line between my two lives had blurred beyond recognition. I was no longer just the office worker or the online persona. I was a terrifying hybrid of both, teetering on the edge of collapse. And then it happened. They asked a question so precise, so pointed, that my mind went blank. I couldn't think. I couldn't respond. My throat ached. My hands shook violently, and I felt like I was about to fall apart. For a few agonizing seconds, the entire world shrank to that single chat window, that single moment, that single truth waiting to be revealed. I considered confessing, coming clean, admitting everything. But fear, pride, and the sheer addiction to the game held me back. Instead, I typed the first thing that came to mind, a nonsensical deflection, a joke, a lifeline thrown into the storm. It worked. For now. But the terror lingered, a poison in my veins, a constant reminder that my double life was no longer sustainable, that every interaction was a minefield, that one wrong step could destroy everything I had built. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, couldn't focus. My real life continued, oblivious, while my secret life demanded every ounce of attention, every second of energy, every fragment of my soul. And I knew, deep down, that the next night or the night after, or maybe even tomorrow, the collision would come again, bigger, more dangerous, more unavoidable. The thrill was intoxicating, but the fear was unbearable. And in the midst of this chaos, I had a revelation. I was addicted to the danger. I was addicted to the lie. I was addicted to the constant, horrifying possibility of exposure. And I was powerless to stop it. That night, as I lay awake staring at the ceiling, I whispered to myself a terrifying truth. I was no longer sure where the real me ended and the fake me began. I didn't know if I would ever find out. And the worst part? No one else could. No one would ever know. Not yet. But one day, maybe, someone would, and then the game would be over forever. Have you ever felt the exhilaration of standing on the edge of disaster, knowing that one wrong move could ruin everything, yet being unable to step back? The days after that night were some of the most intense of my life. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped, my heart racing, convinced it was the moment of reckoning. I started double-checking every interaction, every post, every word I had ever written as my alter ego. I couldn't trust myself anymore. My own memory had begun betraying me. I would reread conversations and find discrepancies I didn't remember making, minor details that could unravel everything if noticed by the wrong person. It was exhausting, terrifying, but strangely exhilarating at the same time. I felt alive in a way I never had before, but at a cost that weighed on me every waking moment. I was constantly calculating, constantly balancing, constantly on edge. My double life had become more than a pastime. It was a labyrinth I could never escape, and I was both the architect and the prisoner. Then came the weekend when everything seemed to converge. A friend from work mentioned a casual online discussion group, joking about how everyone has a secret online life. I felt my stomach twist. Was it possible that they suspected something? That someone had pieced together clues I didn't even know I had left behind? I laughed nervously, trying to deflect, but inside I was panicking. I realized that no matter how careful I was, the risk of exposure was no longer theoretical. It was imminent. I tried to immerse myself more deeply in my fake persona, thinking that if I could keep them distracted, if I could maintain control, I might survive the storm. But the more I engaged, the more fragile the illusion became. One night, while chatting with someone who had been a constant companion in my online world, I accidentally referenced a detail from my real life. A place, a memory, a mundane fact that I had never shared with anyone in that space. Their response was immediate, probing, suspicious. My hands trembled, and for a moment, I considered shutting down, disappearing forever, erasing both personas and hoping the world would forget me. But I couldn't. Years of living as two people had made me dependent on the thrill, the control, the chaos. So I fumbled through explanations, lies layered upon lies, each one more intricate than the last. I prayed that my impromptu stories were convincing enough, that my fabrications would hold long enough for the danger to pass. It worked, barely. But the fear had taken root deeper than ever. I started noticing changes in my behavior in the real world. I would pause before responding to coworkers, wondering if my words mirrored my alter ego's humor or charm. I caught myself laughing at jokes in ways I never would have before, and I could feel the subtle blending of personalities creeping into every aspect of my life. The two identities were no longer separate. They were colliding, merging, and I had no control over which version of myself would emerge in any given moment. I tried to journal, to write down my thoughts as my real self, to untangle the mess, but the words came out filtered through the lens of my online persona. I would read over what I had written and think, did I really think this? Or is this them? I was losing touch with reality, and yet I couldn't stop. There were moments when the guilt was overwhelming. I thought about the people I had deceived, the trust one had manipulated, and I wanted to confess, to come clean, to unburden myself. But fear, pride, and addiction held me back. The truth was, I needed this other life as much as I needed air. I was trapped, a puppet dancing to strings I had created, and the thought of cutting them would leave me gasping. Then came the most surreal moment of all. One evening, I was lounging on my couch, scrolling through messages from both worlds simultaneously, when I realized something horrifying. A friend from work had unknowingly mentioned a detail in a conversation that only my alter ego would know. My blood ran cold. For the first time, I felt like a cornered animal, realizing that despite all my cunning, all my planning, all my precautions, I had underestimated the possibility of overlap. My double life was no longer safe. It was fragile, exposed, and I was powerless to protect it. I spent the rest of the night awake, my mind racing, imagining every possible outcome. A casual comment leading to suspicion, a shared joke unraveling everything, an innocent question triggering the collapse of years of deception. And in that darkness, I had a revelation. I understood that I had been addicted not only to the thrill, but to the fear itself. The danger, the possibility of discovery, the adrenaline of the precarious balance. It was what kept me alive, vibrant, awake. Without it, I would feel hollow. I realized that the double life was never just about escape. It had become my identity, inseparable from who I was, inseparable from the version of myself I could barely recognize anymore. Days turned into weeks, and I continued to navigate this tightrope, each interaction a calculated risk, each message a potential disaster, each laugh a blend of relief and terror. And yet, the thought of stopping, of living a normal, singular life, was unthinkable. My addiction to this dual existence had become part of me, a secret tethered to my soul. Sometimes, I wonder how long I can continue before the inevitable collision. Will someone discover the truth by accident? Will my careful construction crumble because of a random coincidence? And what will I do when the mask is finally ripped away, when the people I love realize that half of who I am has been a lie for years? But for now, I continue. I exist in this fragile equilibrium, juggling two identities, pretending, deceiving, surviving, addicted to the thrill and terrified of the consequences. And the terrifying truth is that no one, not a single soul, knows the reality of my life. I have friends, coworkers, family, people who trust me, who believe they know me, yet they have no idea of the other life I lead. And that is the most exhilarating and frightening part of all. I am both everything and nothing, a master of illusion, and yet a prisoner of my own creation. I live in constant tension, in constant fear, and in constant ecstasy. And perhaps that is the point. I will never be whole, never be singular, never be simple. I am a secret, a story untold, a life split in two. So here I am, confessing anonymously, laying bare the chaos of my double existence for anyone brave enough to read, to understand, to judge. And I leave you with this question, because it's the only one that matters. If you were living a life where the person you are in secret feels more alive than the person everyone sees, would you stop, or would you keep going, knowing the thrill is inseparable from the danger? Would you tell anyone, or would you guard the secret, even if it consumes you?